All right, I think we're live. We got at least Kathy's here already, but before I get to that, let me just run through the things I normally run through. If this is your first time in a live broadcast, I do these every week, usually every week. Sometimes things get in the way, I can't make it, but most weeks, Thursday evenings, 7 o'clock Central, I'm here and I'm doing a live broadcast. If you guys, like I said, if you've never been here before, this is just an Ask Me Anything session, so you guys leave the comments in the chat. And I do my best to respond to all of the chats that come in. Keep it family friendly is the only thing I ask. Don't be rude. Don't start cussing at people. None of that kind of stuff will kick you out. But other than that, just about anything you want to ask, you can ask. And I'll do my best to get it answered, hopefully. So, all right, let's jump in. We got, I don't know, about 7 people here so far. We got Kathy here. What are you saying, Kathy? That you just had your first loss, your best buck got out of the temporary cage, and your dog got him. Oh, no. Says, sucky situation, but at least I got him to sire some offspring before he went, and I got some practice processing. Yep, that makes sense. Says, I'm using your rabbit foot keychain method. Also added the tail. Good. And I would love it as a charm. Have you ever tried it with tails successful? Yeah, it does work with tails as well. So yeah, you can do that. I will tell you, they do kind of stiffen up a little bit, so they're not great. I mean, they're not flexible afterwards, which is not a bad thing necessarily, but it works with the tail just the same way it works with a foot. It all works. So sorry for your loss there, but hey, at least you're getting something out of it. Like you said, you got some practice. You got some rabbits out of them before, and hopefully it's all good now. So, all right, Lauren is here. Hello to you, Lauren. And GM, hello. Mr. Stingray says, I'm looking to incubate quail. Any tips? Oh yeah, got lots of tips on incubating quail. I did a whole series on that. You can go back to my homepage on YouTube, just click on the channel, and there is a playlist there for incubating and storing eggs, and there's a whole, it goes through the entire process. Just give you a couple of quick tips. I use a Listerine, regular gold Listerine mixed 50% with water. Spray the eggs down before you incubate them. Don't spray them down once you put them in the incubator. Turn them daily. If you don't have an egg turner, just reach in and roll them around with your hands a couple of times a day until they go into lockdown, which is day 15 is usually when I go into lockdown. And at that point, you quit turning them. Keep the temperature at 100 degrees. 99.5 for a forced air, with a fan in it, incubator, or a still air incubator, you're going to want to do 101 degrees. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of tips. That's a broad question. It's too much for me to go into right now, but you can go back and you can check out those videos in that playlist, and they'll show you everything you need to know about incubating. Hopefully you have a good hatch rate with that. So good luck. Hopefully that gives you something to kind of go with. And Maya is here from Germany. What time is it in Germany now? It's got to be late in the evening or early. Let's see, it's probably like early morning, at like 1 o'clock in the morning or something. Hey, thanks for joining us all the way from Germany. Colleen Withrow says, how many quail can I keep in a 5 foot by 4 foot? Very common question is, how many quail can you keep in a cage that, whatever size? So 5 foot by 4 foot would be about 20 square feet. You want to expect about 1 square foot per bird in general, but you can go just a little bit more than that if you have like a wire bottom in the cage and the droppings aren't going to build up. So I would say anywhere from about 20, you could probably push it up to 30, but 30 is going to be a little bit on the high side. So you probably want to go closer to 20, 25, something like that. That's going to be your best bet probably. Hopefully I got that answered for you. Mr. Stingray says, let's see, if my incubator does not have water condensation on the glass, is that a problem? Well, not necessarily. Humidity is not as big of a deal as temperature. You really want the humidity somewhere between about 50% to 65% or so until lockdown. Then you want to bump it up to about 75%. It probably does have a hydrometer on it that'll tell you kind of what that is. It will condense on the glass, but not always condense on the glass. It depends on how dry your atmosphere is outside of the incubator. So that's not necessarily something to stress about. I wouldn't worry about it too much. All right, Marie says, saw a video and they used hydrogen peroxide instead of Listerine. Have you ever tried hydrogen peroxide? Yeah, hydrogen peroxide works if you don't have Listerine. I like Listerine. It's just, in my opinion, a better bacteria killer, I guess. But hydrogen peroxide will work. Even rubbing alcohol will work if you can't find gold Listerine. I wouldn't use any of the other colors of Listerine, just regular old gold Listerine. But yeah, hydrogen peroxide works just fine. You can use that. Yeah, Maya says it's 2:03 a.m. in Berlin, Germany. Good grief. I don't know if you stayed up late or you got up early, but either way, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. Or this morning for you, I guess. Samurai Falcon, what a great name, says, I bought 4 quail just to start off. I have them on substrate. Should I switch them to wire bottoms? I bought J-clips to build a rabbit cage, but I can't find the pliers anywhere. Can I use normal pliers? You could try to use normal pliers. I mean, you can get it to work, but it's going to be some work. It's a lot better if you can get J-clip pliers. You can get them off Amazon. I think I've got some in my Amazon shop. They do make the job a ton easier. So I would suggest that if you can. If not, try it with pliers and see how it works with regular pliers. But it is probably going to be difficult to get them to work right with. I mean, it's going to be more work, a lot more work with regular pliers. All right. Ernest says, quick question for you, Chris. I didn't get the rest of your question answered, did I, Samurai? I'm sorry. About keeping them on substrate or a wire bottom floor. It's up to you. Keep them on substrate if you want to. The thing to watch for on that, though, is to make sure that the droppings don't build up too fast. They don't start getting, droppings caked in their feet. Some of those kinds of things. That's why I like to use a wire bottom cage. It's just much easier to keep clean. You're going to have to do a lot more cleaning with, substrate in the bottom of your cages or the bottom, whatever they're on. But that's not necessarily a problem. If you're prepared for that, then go ahead. It's fine. You can do it however you want to do it. Like I said, just watch their feet. Make sure their feet stay fairly clean and they don't start getting things, droppings clumped up on their feet. That would be the thing I would be concerned about. Grab a drink here real quick and get back into it. All right. Ernest says, quick question. That was hard to say for some reason. Have a quail that has large feet. Is this a birth defect? It is about a 5-week-old baby. And you're from Asheville, North Carolina. Says, seems to hinder its movement. Should I call it out? If it has large feet, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that. Yeah, I would say it's probably a birth defect, but I don't know. I don't know that that's necessarily a reason to call it out. It just depends. I mean, if it's really bad, if it's really having a hard time getting around, but if it's getting around okay, eating and drinking just fine, then you can leave it. I mean, it's really up to you. If it seems to be a problem, it might be best to call it out so you don't pass those genes on. Get that deformity, so to speak, kind of to be it's probably a mutation more than a deformity, but you don't want necessarily for that to get in the rest of your flock. I don't know that that's going to happen. Who knows? It's kind of a personal choice, really, as to whether you want to or not. I think if it was me personally, I'd just watch it, see how it did, especially if it's a meat bird. Let it grow out if you're not planning on breeding it anyway, and it's doing okay. That's the way I would handle it. All right, Bouvier Aaron says, hey, Chris, how is life on your side? It's pretty good. Says, wet here, mud, and more mud. But that is Western Washington. Yeah, it's starting to get kind of chilly here. We're getting, not every night, but more nights than not, it's getting down below freezing. The days are still getting up in the 40s and 50s, but I think we're supposed to have a cold front come through. We got a chance of snow this weekend. Not a lot of snow, just a dusting probably is all it's going to be. But it could be a lot worse. It's not too bad, really. All right, William says, I have to work. I had to jump on here and say hello from Alabama. Thanks for doing that, William. I appreciate it. Says, I have the 3 that the rest of the hatch did not make it. I know the 3 are laying eggs. Life will find a way. Thank you, Chris. Well, you're welcome, and glad to hear that those are doing well. Ramiro says, hi, Chris. Will my quail layers lay more or less eggs with or without a presence of a male? That doesn't really have an effect on whether they lay eggs or not. The male doesn't. It's really, whether quail will lay eggs or not comes down to 2 things. How much light are they getting? That's the primary thing. They need 14 hours a day of light in order to lay eggs. And how much stress are they under? If you're moving them around a lot, or if there's a predator that's coming and terrorizing them at night, something like that, they'll stop laying. They won't lay nearly as regularly. But if they're, just left alone in their cage, let them get used to things, and they're not being moved around from one cage to another, any of those kinds of things. They got 14 hours a day of light, they'll lay. It doesn't matter if they have a male around or not. That doesn't really affect the egg laying. All right. Lodrell 100. Hello, Chris, and hello to all. Well, hello to you. Thanks for joining us. Vote for Andrew Yang says, do you spray your eggs with Listerine just to store them? I do. I spray my eggs when I collect them. So whenever I collect them and go to store them, I spray them one time then, and I spray them one more time before they go into the incubator. But again, never spray them after they've gone into the incubator. You don't want to spray your eggs down with cold liquid when they're hot. It can shock them. There's all kinds of things that can happen with that. So just don't do it at that point. But before then, I do. When I store them, one more time right before I put them in the incubator. All right. Excuse me. Let's see where we at here. Lauren says, we had a first-time doe have 6 kits on the wire of the cage, and they all froze to death. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Unfortunately, that's pretty common. Says, but I had a doe that had 12 kits 2 days ago, and they are all well. How are you today? Well, I'm doing well, thanks. Good. You might watch that doe with the 12 kits. That's a lot of rabbits for a doe to handle. And you may, if you had one doe, if they both had babies at the same time, one doe lost all her kits, but the other one had 12. I very seldom find that a doe can handle all 12 kits. Now, she may be, but you might watch it pretty closely. You may end up trying to foster some of those kits with the other mother. That may be something that you can do. Just basically move them over to the other mother, see if the other mother will take care of them for you, feed them for you, all those kinds of things. Because it's not uncommon when you have like a big litter, like more than 10, to lose a couple of rabbits in the process. It's just a lot for one rabbit to try to feed out and take care of. But good. I'm glad to hear that those are doing great, and I'm sorry for your loss on the other 6. It's one of those things that it's pretty common, especially for first-time does, like you said. I always watch pretty closely on the day or the couple of days, right before and right after. Right before, let me back up. I always watch them pretty close, like the day or two before they're supposed to have their babies, so that I can catch them if they're on the nest, get them moved into a nest box, and hopefully they'll be okay at that point. But it is a tricky thing. So sorry for your loss there, but sounds like you're doing okay with the other one. Congratulations there. All right. Ernest says it's a Texas A&M bird and it eats and drinks just fine. I think you're talking about the one with the overly large feet. If it's eating and drinking, fine. I don't see any reason to necessarily call it out. But hey, again, that's your choice. Do that however you want to do that. All right, GM says, can you talk about feed and medicated feeds for quail? Well, what do you want to know about them? As far as feed for quail, I feed all my birds a game bird starter. It's a 30% protein. I always say go for anything about 25% or over on protein levels if you can. You're going to get much better results out of your birds if you can keep them on a little bit of a higher protein. A lot of times, the feeds that you can buy in the store, sometimes they're down in the 20% range. That's not terrible. They'll do okay on those, but they do better, in my opinion, if you can get over 25% protein. So I go with a 30%. Not everybody can find that. Sometimes you have to go with like a turkey starter or something like that to get them to get the protein levels up. Watch for the calcium level. You need about 1.5% calcium. So if your feed is lower than that, you may want to add some like crushed oyster shell or something like that. Don't mix it in with the feed. Put it in a separate container and just let them eat as much of that as they want to. If your feed level's at 1.5 to 2% calcium, that's fine. You don't need to worry about doing anything additional with that. As far as medicated feed, I don't use medicated feed, but there's nothing really wrong with medicated feed. Most medicated feeds are medicated with, what is that called? I can't remember. But anyway, it's not harmful to people. It's not, there's nothing wrong with doing that. There's no withdrawal time you have to worry about. I just don't use it myself because I don't like the idea of anything extra. But it's, all the studies have said it's perfectly safe. So you don't really stress about that. If you are using a medicated feed, it's fine. So hopefully I got that answered for you, GM. Judy says, hello, Chris. I put some Timothy hay in for my quail, and I found they love it. What a surprise. Interesting. I've never tried to throw Timothy hay in there with them. I might do that, actually. I never thought of them eating the Timothy hay, but I guess they would. I don't know why I didn't think of that, but I'll try it out. Thanks for the suggestion. Britt says, I put a light on my quail to get eggs over winter. Will it decrease their laying lifespan? I think that depends. I mean, it can. The common wisdom is that birds, chickens, or quail or whatever, are born with the amount of eggs they'll lay in their lifetime. So yeah, if you're laying all winter long, that could shorten their life, or not their lifespan, but their egg laying ability later in life. You know, but you're still going to get the same number of eggs. It's just you can get the same number of eggs in a shorter amount of time. Whereas normally they would lay eggs all summer long, stop laying in the winter, and then start laying eggs again. Now I don't know if that's true or not, but that is the common wisdom with that. I can't say that I've actually tested it out well enough to know, one way or the other whether it is true or not. It's up to you. If you don't really want the eggs during the wintertime, give them a break, let them. I tend to replace my birds about every 2 years, so I'm not worried about it. I'm replacing them anyway about that time frame, so it's not a big deal to me. But you can do it either way. All right, Lauren. Sorry, I had to get another drink there. Lauren says hello to, or actually thumbs up, everyone. Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate that. Michael says, should I wait till spring to start my first flock of quail, or could I start in the winter? I don't know your situation where you're at, so I can't tell you for sure what to do. If it was me, I would go ahead and start because if you're going to get birds, it's going to take them at least a couple of weeks for them to calm down, get situated, like if you pick them up in the spring, you're going to look at least a couple of weeks before they start laying. Now, if you're getting younger birds right now, so like you can usually pick up 4-week-old birds cheaper than you can pick up 8-week-old birds. So you might be able to find somebody that's got some good bloodlines, pick up some 4-week-old birds. And I wouldn't go much younger than that because, especially if you're going to keep them outside in the winter, much younger than that, they may not be acclimated to the weather yet, and you're taking a chance. But 4 weeks old, they should be fine. You can get them cheaper. You can put them out in the pens, and that gives them another 4 weeks or so to grow out to maturity where they would start laying. And by that time, you're getting real close to spring anyway. So to me, I would just go ahead and start in the winter. But I don't know what your situation's like, if you've got cages ready, how cold your winters are, how harsh they are, any of those kinds of things. If it's going to be a pain for you to keep them watered in the winter, I don't know any of those kinds of things. So you'll have to kind of make that decision for yourself. But I would do it in the wintertime. I wouldn't hesitate to do it in the winter. That's my thought on it anyway. All right. Kathy says, Lauren, what a bummer. I'm glad you had another one kindle. Yeah, I agree. It is always a sad thing to lose, baby rabbits. But, like you said, there's always a bright side to things. Hopefully she won't have that problem on, the next kindling. And Gustavo is here. Hello to you, Gustavo. Says, hello, teacher. Nice to see you again. He always calls me teacher. He's the guy that's helping me learn Spanish. Trying to anyway. I haven't been available to do much studying lately. I've been too busy. But he stays on me pretty good. He sends me some Spanish messages every once in a while, and I respond to him with best Spanish I can. Then he corrects my terrible Spanish for me, lets me know what mistakes I made. He's more of the teacher than I am, but great guy. Glad to have you here. Thanks, Gustavo. Rocky Reynolds says, I don't have any questions for you tonight. I just want to thank you again for sharing your knowledge with us. Enjoy the weekend, sir. Thank you so much, Rocky. I appreciate that. And I hope you have a great weekend, too. Thanks for stopping by and joining us tonight. Maya says, we recently, Kits and the Doe did pull fur in the nest box, but had the babies on the cage floor. We moved them to the nest box and she never fed them. They passed away. Should she never breed again? Or should she never get bred again? Okay, so she had, your doe had kits on the cage floor. You picked them up, you moved them to the nest box. Strange that she didn't feed them. That's a weird thing. Most rabbits do. So that's definitely a bad sign. But if she's a first-time mom, I chalk that up to first-time mom. I'd try again. Now, if it happens again where she doesn't feed them, then you got to make a decision at that point. I usually give my does 3 strikes. If they have 3 failed litters in a row, then I consider them out. But there's plenty of times where plenty of stories from people too, where she was terrible on her first litter, terrible on her second litter, but her third litter she got it right, and now she's their best doe, and she just does great from there on out. So, it's like I said, I would give her 3 strikes if it was me. You got to make that decision for yourself, though, if it's worth, really trying. I would at least give her 1 more attempt before I would count her out, though. All right. Lauren says, how much money is the 30% feed? Well, I have a feed store that they mill their own feed. I get a pretty good deal on it. It's about $13 for a 50-pound bag. So it's actually cheaper than, anywhere else I can get feed. So it's not a bad deal for me. You may not have that luxury. You may not be able to get it that cheap where you're at. I would always look at getting it at a local feed store though. They may not carry it in, but make sure you ask them if they can order it in if they don't carry it in, because if you're excuse me, if you're trying to order like on Amazon or something like that, it's going to be super expensive because the shipping fees. I mean, it's 50 pounds, so the shipping fees, and they may have free shipping, but they're just building that into the price. So it's better to see if you can find it locally. A lot of times you can get, like I said, your local feed store may not carry that, but you can ask them if they can get it and they can have it delivered to the store for you for free. And then you can buy it from them that way. That's what I do with my rabbit feed. My feed store doesn't carry, I buy my rabbit feed from a different feed store. They don't carry I like a higher percentage protein rabbit feed, so I go with a 19% pellet. They carry a 16% pellet, but they can get 19% from their supplier. So they just have it delivered for me there, and I pick it up every couple of weeks, and it works out just great for both of us. So, do that. Don't just go in and check and see what they have and then just count it out. Well, they don't have it, and go somewhere else. Ask them about it. All right. Vote for Andrew Yang says egg shelf life and storage. And that's with a question mark. Says, I've heard everything from 2 weeks to 4 months. I'm not sure what to believe. Okay, it depends on what you're talking about with egg shelf life and storage. And look at that. Lars is here with a 200 Danish, can't remember what they're called, Danish. Anyway, a super chat. It's like $20, $30 in US dollars. So very generous of you, Lars. Thank you so much. He comes in here and does this just all the time. I don't know. I feel, anyway, very, very thankful for that. Thank you so much, Lars. It's good to see you again. And thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. All right, back to the egg shelf life. Depends on what you mean by shelf life and storage. If you're storing them for eating, if you're storing them for hatching. So if you plan on storing, let's talk about hatching first, because that's a little bit easier to talk about. Okay, if you're storing eggs for hatching, you don't want them to get too cold or too hot. If they get too hot, they're going to start developing in the egg, and the temperatures and the situation's not right. You're probably going to get a poor hatch rate, a bunch of birds dying early and never really developing further. Too hot is anything over about 75 degrees. 70 degrees is kind of about the top that I want to keep them at. If you don't want them to get too cold, because you get them too cold and they're going to die, and that really is anything below about 50 degrees. So you don't want to put them in a refrigerator. What I do is I put them in a cooler. I put them in an egg carton, just a standard chicken egg carton, and I put them in a cooler. I put a mason jar in there so the egg carton sits at an angle, and then I just move it to either side, every couple of times a day, actually morning and then the night. So that's turning the eggs basically while I'm storing them. You do want to turn them while you're storing them. You don't want them to just sit stationary. You want to get, turn them a couple of times a day so the yolk doesn't settle to one side and stick to the shell, something like that. What else? How long can you store them? You can store them for about 7 days, 7 to 10 days before you really start having some drops in the viability of the eggs and having them start not developing or not becoming viable. So about 7 days would be that's about what I do, is about 7 days. Keep them cool. I put them in a cooler. I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm having a hard time keeping it straight. So I put them in a cooler with an ice pack, like one of those freezer packs. You put in the freezer and you freeze it. You throw that in your cooler. I just put one of them in the bottom. It doesn't keep the cooler that cold, but it keeps it cool, a little bit below what the room temperature is, which, especially in the winter times, usually about 68 degrees. So you probably could just store them out on your counter if you wanted to, but I do that little extra step, and that's how I store my eggs. Now, if you're talking about storing them for eating, there's a lot of factors that go into that. It depends a lot on your humidity in your area. If you live in a very dry climate, your eggs are not going to last nearly as long as if you live in a more humid climate. Eggs are pretty resilient. If you're storing them for eating, either way, storing them for eating or for hatching, do not wash them. In other words, don't scrub them clean. You don't want to do that. There is a bloom that is on an egg shell that keeps the egg from getting bacteria inside the egg and keeps it from going bad. So they'll last a lot longer if you don't wash them. Just wash them before you use them. If you're going to incubate them, don't wash them at all. What else? Get another drink here. So as far as how long they'll last when you're going to store them for eating, if I'm going to store them for eating, I always put them in the fridge. Because most of my eggs are fertile and I don't want them to start to develop. You guys have probably had that problem where you crack an egg open and it got like spots of blood in it. That's an egg that's started to develop. I don't want that in any eggs I'm going to eat. So they always go right into the fridge. And they store in the fridge for a pretty long time. I can get probably an average somewhere around 30 days or so before they're bad. And just to test if they're bad is pretty easy. I'm going to wash the eggs anyway, so I always put about that much water in the bottom of my sink, and I throw the eggs in there. And if they float, they're bad eggs. Throw them out. If they don't float, they're good eggs. Wash them up. Go ahead and use them to eat them. Hopefully that kind of answers your question for you. But it does vary a lot, because if you're in a drier climate, if you've got a lot drier air, then that egg, the moisture inside the egg is going to evaporate a lot quicker than if you live in a more humid climate, and your egg's going to go bad a lot quicker than if you live in a humid climate. So, it's hard to say exactly. There is no answer that says they're going to last this long exactly. You just kind of have to see how it does for you. My eggs in the wintertime when it's dry here don't last as long as my eggs in the summertime when it's a little bit more humid. And that's how it goes. All right. Marie says our Purina store orders are 30% feed, so if you have a Purina dealer, you might check them. That's a good suggestion, Marie. And Purina's a good feed. There's nothing wrong with that. So, I'm glad you can get 30% feed. I know a lot of people have a problem with that. All right. Kay Mundwiller says there's so much about alfalfa and rabbits, whether they should or shouldn't have it and when, or if their feed contains it. Your thoughts? Okay. Most rabbit feed is alfalfa based, and most of the controversy is about the hay that you feed them, whether you should feed them alfalfa hay or not. The big reason for that is because the rabbit pellets are usually alfalfa based. So there is a concern that if you're feeding alfalfa based pellets and alfalfa hay, that they can get too much calcium in their diet. Alfalfa is pretty high in calcium. I don't worry about it from a feed standpoint, but I do feed Timothy hay to my rabbits for that reason. One thing that you can look for is if they're getting too much calcium. The rabbits expel calcium in their urine. So if you see their urine is kind of milky, kind of white, that means they've got a little extra calcium that they're getting rid of. And that may be a sign that you've got maybe just a little too high calcium. So you might want to switch your hay to a Timothy hay, or just pull the hay for a while. They don't have to have the hay. It's okay for you to take a break from that. The thing you would worry about if there is too high a calcium is things like kidney stones and those kinds of things building up inside the rabbit. But yeah, alfalfa is perfectly fine for them. It's very nutritional. It's pretty much a complete nutrition for them. But I don't think that, like I said, if you're feeding hay to your rabbits, which I do, I would go with a Timothy hay if you can find it, or even orchard grass hay, something like that, not a alfalfa hay. It's probably just a little too much alfalfa. But, it doesn't mean that you need to throw out a bale of hay if you've got one. Go ahead and feed it to them, let them finish that off, and then switch hay. It's not like that. It's not like they eat, a handful of alfalfa hay and suddenly they've got all these problems with extra calcium. It's not that quick. So it's nothing to worry about from that standpoint. Hopefully that answers that. All right, Samurai Falcon says, the 4 quail I have are Pharaoh, but I'm thinking of also getting a couple of Bob Whites. I have a large cage. Could I mix them without stress, or should I just build a new cage? Okay, I don't know if Rhonda's here or not, but Rhonda was keeping Bob Whites and Coturnics together and said they did okay. I think there were some problems with the Coturnics wanting to beat up the Bob Whites, but I think she got it worked out pretty well. If you've got 4 quail now, though, I think I would build a separate cage. I would not try to mix them in. Anytime you introduce new birds into an established flock, it's like they want to fight, they want to establish dominance, and they can do quite a bit of damage. So I think it would be better to have another cage and keep them separate. If I was keeping them, I would keep them separate myself. That's just the way I would do it. But I think you could get it to work if you needed to really house them together. You could do it. It would be okay. All right. GM says, thanks for always helping out and answering all my questions. You're absolutely welcome. Thanks for asking the questions, or we wouldn't have a reason for a live broadcast, or I guess any of my videos, really. Owen Miller says, hi, how you doing? I'm doing great, thanks. Hopefully you are too. Danielle. Is that Danielle? Yeah, I think it is Danielle. I'm so bad with names sometimes. I can't figure out if it's Danielle or Daniel, but I think this one is Danielle. I'm pretty sure. It says, hello, good evening. Just hatched a new baby quail, Pharaoh/Italian, and waiting on 2 more eggs to hatch. This one hatched early and fluffy, so cute. Yeah, you always have one or two that hatch a little bit early, and it's always a little bit stressful because you're like, oh, I want to get them out, but I can't get them out. I got to wait till the others hatch. Or, I always give them about 48 hours before I pull the ones that have hatched early out. If you might wait. If after 24 hours the others haven't hatched yet, and you can see inside, and you don't see any like eggs pipped or anything like that, you might just open it up real quick, grab the one out, and get him into the brooder box. But it's not that big of a rush. They can live for quite a while on what they have in their yolk sac. Basically, when they hatch, they can go for a while. All right, where we at here? Charger 7022 says, I get ADM Game Bird Starter for $15 a bag, and my quail do very well on it. It's 28%. Sounds like a great feed. $15 a bag's a pretty good price for it too. Ernest Pruitt says, ordered from Hatch Poultry. They will be shipped tomorrow during freezing temperatures. Anything special I need to do before incubation? In the 20s here at night. Ordered 50 rare quail eggs. Excited to get them this weekend, I am assuming. Well, excuse me, you should not have to worry too much about that. The one thing I would do is when you get the eggs in, try to make sure somebody's home so they're not sitting out there on the, out on your porch for, hours on end and something below 50 degrees. What are you saying? It's 20s at night. It's probably not a big concern for that either. The one thing I would do is, try to get them inside as soon as they're delivered if you can. Get them out of the box, get them in, I always put them in my egg turner and let them rest for about 24 hours before you put them in the incubator. Let them, kind of acclimate to the room temperature so it's not a sudden going from, 50 degrees to 100 degrees kind of shock to them. You want to give them a little bit of time to mellow out and, adjust to the temperature. I always do that before I incubate my eggs regardless, but it's especially important with shipped eggs. That would be the only thing I would do. If you're going to spray them down with like a Listerine mixture, which I do before I incubate, wait till they've come up to room temperature before you do that. And, that's about it, really. I don't think there's anything else special that you need to do. And when I say I put them in the egg turner, I don't turn the egg turner on. I just set them in the egg turner and let them sit there. That way, 24 hours later, all I got to do is spray them down with some Listerine spray, get them, treated for that, make sure the bacteria is dead, throw them in the incubator. The whole egg turner goes in the incubator, plug it in, ready to go. So it's easy. All right. Manny says, Manny here, I live in Minnesota and it gets to the negatives at night already. I'm just wondering how quail do in that weather. Is there anything I need to do so that they stay warm outside in their hutch? I wouldn't worry about it. As long as they've got a wind block, if they can get it to a place that's out of the wind, they'll be fine. We don't get a lot of, it's not negative temperatures here, but we do get negative temperatures. I've never had a problem with birds in negative temperatures. I say never had a problem. Every great once in a while, I'll lose a bird when it gets really, really cold, but it's usually a bird that's a little bit older, maybe was a little bit sick to begin with, something like that. It's kind of survival of the fittest, but it's rare that ever happens. Very rare. They do pretty well. They're pretty hardy birds. As long as they can get out of the wind, they're usually fine no matter how cold it gets. All right. Make reality great again says, I have 13 quail right now, around 12 weeks old. It's winter here in the UK. And who was that with a $5 super chat? Outside in Georgia. Gave me a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Outside. I appreciate it. And says, thanks for all the info. Well, thank you for the super chat, and you are absolutely welcome for the information. All right, where were we with this? All right, back to make reality great again. Says, I have 13 quail right now, 12 weeks old. It's winter here in the UK, and we're getting about 8 hours of daylight. I haven't heard any males crowing. I thought they would by now. Well, it's because you're only getting 8 hours of daylight. They need, just like hens need 14 hours a day of light in order to lay regularly, the roosters need 14 hours a day of light in order to be in the breeding mode. That's what signifies breeding season for them. So they're not going to crow unless they're getting that 14 hours a day of light. You can wait till spring. We're a week and a half away from the winter solstice, which is the shortest day of the year. I think it's the same in UK as it is. I don't know. Maybe it's different, but we're about a week and a half from the shortest day of the year. The days are going to start getting longer. Of course, it's probably going to be a couple of months before they get long enough to be naturally get them to laying eggs and roosters crowing. But if you want that, add some external lights, bump the daylight up to 14 hours a day. You can just extend it at the night, or you can turn them on early in the morning, which is what I prefer to do. and give them that extra light to get them up to 14 hours. All right. By the way, I'm still working on getting the Kickstarter going for the solar light. If you guys aren't familiar with that, the solar light, I've worked up a prototype. Got a company that's going to make them for me, but I can't afford to do the bulk order to get them out to you guys. They're going to be about $40, but it's a solar light, completely solar powered with a timer, programmable, so you can set it to come on whenever you want. I love it. It comes on at 2:30 in the morning. So whenever I go out to feed the quail in the mornings, right now when the days are so short and it's not getting light fast enough, then I'm going out in the dark, but the quail lights are already, quail's already lit up. They're already up, moving around, keeps the birds laying. It works great. So if you guys are, looking for something like that, you can, pay attention. I'll be posting whenever it goes live on Kickstarter, probably in the next week or two. If you're not familiar with Kickstarter, again, there's no risk to you guys. If you want to buy one of the lights, you just pledge that you will buy one. As long as we meet the funding goal, then you'll be charged when we meet the funding goal, which will be 30 or 60 days out, however long I set the Kickstarter for. If we don't meet the funding goal, you're not going to be charged. If you do get charged, then you'll get the light whenever we get it in, which will probably be a couple of months out. It won't be in time for this winter, but it'll be in time for next winter. So anyway, that was a long, detailed thing. But pay attention if you guys are interested in that. And I'll post when the Kickstarter goes live. We'll see if we can get it funded. All right. Where are we at here? Vote for Andrew Yang says, thank you for taking the time to answer the questions. I know why Gustavo calls you teacher. Well, you're absolutely welcome. And thank you. Like I said, he's much more of a teacher than I am. Great guy just a great guy. He speaks, his English is great. Probably better than mine. And of course, he's native Spanish speaker. So he's a great guy to have if you're trying to learn Spanish. Very helpful. All right. Angel says, good evening, brother. Our kits are rocking. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that, Angel. Oh, I'm glad things are going well. Make Reality Great Again says there's been no eggs, but no sound from any males unless, and I don't know if lack of light also makes males not crow. Yeah, I think we got that answered already for you, but that's absolutely it, the lack of light. All right. Angel says it's blowing a right gale here in Cornwall. That must be British. Blowing a right gale. That's an interesting saying. I don't think I've heard that before. All right. Marie Scott says our rabbits love clover hay. Yeah, rabbits do love clover. That is one of the. Of course, just about everything loves clover, I think. But yeah, clover's great. They love it a lot. My rabbits also love plantain. If you have like broadleaf plantain growing, which around here it grows everywhere. Plantain's one of those. It's like a healing herb, which is kind of, I guess it's a weed to most people. But you can use plantain for like treating bug bites, skin irritations, those kinds of things. It does a great job with helping with those things, and it tends to grow in like really poor soil, which I find interesting. It's like healing the land, It's kind of interesting. Our Creator our God is just an amazing Creator that all these things work together so well, and it blows my mind. But anyway, my rabbits love plantain. You don't want to feed them too much of that stuff, but just a little bit here and there, boy, they'd go crazy for it. All right. Where are we at here? Angel says, we feed our rabbits non-GMO grower pellets. They are right on line to get to wait a week or so early. Very active. Very active. No sight of tummy upset. So all good. Yeah. Sounds like a great option. Mine are not necessarily non-GMO, but yeah, that's, a good feed makes a big difference. The biggest factor I think in getting rabbits to wait by like 8 weeks old, for example, is genetics. But aside from that, you've got to make sure you've got them on the right feed. And that does make a difference with them as well. All right. Paul says, hey, Chris, great info. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate that. Native Illyrian says, hey, Chris, I processed my first batch of birds tomorrow. Still a bit nervous. How can I not feel bad about doing it? Well, I don't know that I can help with that too much, but let's see. First of all, I will tell you that you probably will feel a little bit bad, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing at all. It should never be an easy thing for us to take life. It's a serious thing. Now, you don't need to feel overly guilty about it. You don't need to feel like, don't go into tears, don't cry about it, anything like that. But a little tinge of not feeling good about doing it, that's a good thing. You want that. So don't, embrace that and be happy about that. As far as, not feeling too bad about it, realize that, we are, I mean, this is part of life. This is what we have to do. If you're not processing those yourself, then you're paying somebody else to do that. And to me, it's almost disrespectful for me in a sense to think that, well, I can't kill that animal. I'm going to pay you to kill that animal so I can eat it. I want to wash my hands of the bad parts of this kind of stuff, of the messy parts of this. I don't know if that makes sense or not. It probably doesn't, but. And again, not that you should feel bad if you're not processing your birds. I'm not saying, I don't mean it like that. I'm not trying to guilt trip you, but that's kind of how I've always dealt with that. Now, I grew up a country boy, fairly poor family. We, hunted and we fished, and that's a lot of what we ate when I was young, and still do. But to me, it's always been just a part of life. It's just, I understood from a very young age that if I wanted to eat, I was going to have to kill something in order to eat. It's just the nature of the way things are. So I think we get kind of detached from that in our society, where not very many people do raise their own food. It's kind of a rare thing. So you may be the only one that does that in your area, and it's a little bit. It's a little bit tricky the first time or two you do it. But just what I would say is, when you go to do that, when you go to actually process the bird, dispatch it, or I think you're talking about birds, yeah. Be decisive about it. Don't be hesitant. Don't overthink it. Just, it's got to be done. Convince yourself of that. Get your mindset right, and then when you go to do it, just do it. Just be done with it, quick as you can. Don't think about it too much. Don't give yourself time to think, am I doing this right? Am I not doing this right? Just do it. That's the best advice I can give for you. Hopefully that helps a little bit. All right, so Michael Bevins says, hi, all from Mike B. in Kent, Washington. Well, hello, Michael. Thanks for joining us. Good grief, we're going fast, aren't we? We got 20 minutes left. All right. Lauren says, for anyone wondering cost of quail, one quail, 50-pound bag, 50-pound feed sack at $17 is 2.5 cents per ounce. 1 ounce per day per quail equals 400 ounces per year. Roughly, it's $9 per year per quail. All right, I'm going to trust your math on that. It sounds about right, I guess. Yeah, I think it probably is. Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Lauren. I appreciate it. All right, First Last says, have you tried giving quail fermented grains? No, I don't mess with fermented grains myself. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just more work. I just don't have the time. I work a full-time job. I have a 40-hour plus a week job. I'm pretty involved in that. I've got family. I've got all kinds of things going on. It's too much work for me to mess with, like fermenting food, any of those kinds of things. So I just don't deal with it. I don't mess with it myself. Same thing, reason why I don't grow fodder. It's just a little bit extra work that I just don't want to do. I don't have enough time now to clean my garage out. I don't need to throw one more thing on there. My process, or my maintenance schedule on my birds and my rabbits is pretty easy, but just feeding them pellets. It's pretty simple. It's quick. And I just need to keep it that way, if that makes sense. But yeah, nothing wrong with fermented feed if you want to do it. I'm sure there are many, many benefits to it, but that should be good. All right. Sherry says, hi, Chris, what's shaking? Merry Christmas to you and all. And then for a second, I read that wrong. I think that's more like a how you doing. That's a figure of speech, right? I was thinking, what is shaking? It's probably me. I'm too animated and I'm making the desk shake or something. But, I think that's all it is. So I'm doing well, though. Thanks for asking. Sherry says, I need to know the solar light you use and where did you purchase it? Well, I just got done talking about that, actually. I don't know if you heard it or not. So I may be repeating myself, but the solar light that I use is my own creation. I've got a manufacturer that made the prototype for me. I've been testing it out for almost 2 years now. It's working great, but I am trying to bring that to market to make it marketable for everybody so everybody can have one. Again, it's a solar light. It's got a programmable timer, so you set the time for when you want it to come on. It turns on whenever you tell it to, and it turns off whenever you tell it to. You don't have to go out there and flip a switch. It's automatic. and it's solar powered, so there's no wires to run or batteries to replace or any of those kinds of things. Works really, really well. Let me leave it down below the link. You guys can go sign up at the Rednecked. Sorry, I can't talk and do this at the same time. If you want to sign up, you can do so. I left a link in the chat there. slightlyrednecked.com/solar light. And you sign up there with your email address, and I'll notify you when the Kickstarter goes live within the next probably week or two. It's probably going to be about $40 light. But again, there'll be a couple of early bird specials. If you get in early on the Kickstarter, you'll get a little bit cheaper than that. All right. Chris says, I put clear plastic over 3 sides of my quail hutch to block the wind. It seems to help. I'm in New York, so it gets a bit windy and cold. That's not a bad idea. The one thing I would say about clear plastic is make sure that it's not in direct sunlight, because you'll get the greenhouse effect going there where you could cook your birds inside that hutch. It gets pretty hot inside of clear plastic, even on a cool day. If there's direct sunlight on it on a cold day even, it can get real warm inside there. So you might be careful with that. But other than that, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't work. All right. First Last says, Lauren, my quail eat lots more than that. Well, they probably waste a lot too. So that is, you're right though. That is probably assuming that they eat every bit of food that you give them. Quail are incredibly wasteful eaters. So that may be part of the reason why they go through a lot more feed than that. But I do think, let's see, $9 per year. That may be a little bit on the low side. I don't know. Who knows? We'll have to do. I've done studies on it before, like how long it took. I can't remember what I came up with, but I've got a video on it somewhere. I've just got to go find it and look back through it. I can't remember. All right. Danielle says, I live in Georgia, and my quail outside have hay and a wind block on both sides of the cage, and they go under the hay at night. Really interesting. That's kind of fun. I was going to say, you're living in Georgia, you probably don't have to worry about the cold too much. It doesn't get that cold, so. All right. Oh, so Lauren's saying Chris estimated that. So Lauren, you must have gotten that from the video I did on that. Maybe it's right. So who knows? All right. First Last says, okay. Oh, I just joined the live vid. Okay. I think that's probably a response to something I said. Make Reality Great Again says, thanks for your answers. I thought that could be the case. I think I'll have to invest in a light and timer thing. Well, if you want your birds to lay early, or you want them to lay during the winter and the fall, that's what you got to do. You got to add some light. You can do it a number of ways. It doesn't have to be super bright light. Just you need some light. But yeah, hopefully that works for you. Manny says, I'm going to buy quail feed that has 24% protein level. Are mealworms a good supplement? Sure they are. 24% is not bad. They'll do okay on 24%. You don't have to worry too much about supplementing it. But if you have an easy source of mealworms, you can add some of those to their feed. It's a good supplement. They'll love the mealworms. It'll work fine. You can also add, catfish food. It tends to be pretty high protein. So you can add that to your feed. You can add cat food. All of those things would work pretty well to up the protein percentage in your feed. I did a video on that a while back too. I have to find that for you, but can't right now. All right. Danielle says, I'm interested in the light, but don't know if I can afford one. Well, that's okay, Danielle. I understand that. If I could sell it cheaper, I would sell it cheaper. Honestly, I was really hoping when I was working on this, I would be able to get it closer to $20, but I just can't do it. I don't need to make a ton of money on the sales of it, but I can't stand to lose money on it either. So, that's where we're at on that. So if you can't afford it, no hard feelings. It's okay. I'm not trying to pressure you into buying one. But I do need as many people as they can to jump in there so that we can get it funded. Because I know there's lots of people that are looking for that. It's been a real nice thing for me. It's worked great. All right. But yeah, again, don't apologize if you can't afford it. If it's something you're not interested in, don't apologize for that. It's okay. It's fine. All right. Paul D says, congrats on the Kickstarter. I'm in and will watch for details. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I did try to run it through Kickstarter once before. It didn't go well. I didn't get anywhere near enough funding. Again, none of those people that pledged got charged for anything. So it was, no big deal to them. But I do, hopefully we'll have better luck this next time. Inner City Chick says, I'm finally able to catch you live. Well, thanks for joining us. I appreciate that. Make reality great again is talking to Angels. Says, I hate the wind so much. The quail don't like it either. Yeah, the wind's always tough. Mr. Stingray gives me a $2.99 super chat. Thank you so much. He's got a question with that says, any recommendation for where to buy eggs? Yeah, I always recommend Kansas City Quail Farms. They're a great supplier, great bloodlines. Also, Hatch Farms Poultry. If you look in any of my recent videos over the last week or two, there's a link down there where you can get 15% off your order when you order from them. Great bloodlines there as well. So there's two places right there you can get eggs ordered and get them shipped to you. So hopefully that helps. Thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate that. Excuse me. Chris Derry says, Chris Derry Rose Elrod, that's a long name, says, good evening from Arkansas. Good evening, Arkansas. I don't know what part of Arkansas you're in, but you may not be too far from me. Farmer Dude says, will a buck rabbit breed a doe that is already bred? Yeah, they'll try, whether they will or not. Usually the doe won't allow it. She'll get pretty grumpy with the buck, but it is possible for it to happen. And, oh, look at that, another $1.99 super chat from Mr. Stingray just to say thank you. Well, thank you for the super chats, Mr. Stingray. I appreciate that. Where we at again? Where I lost track. Lauren says, Farmer Dude, yes, she will have two different litters at two different times. It can happen. Yeah, it can happen where you can get a doe that is pregnant by two different bucks and have different litters at different times. It's not common. Usually the doe, like I said, will be pretty grumpy, won't allow the buck to breed, but it is possible. All right, where are we at here? Oh, and then Lauren says, God intended us to kill and eat animals. Yes, he did. I agree. That's why we have these sharp teeth in the front here. These are meant for meat, for tearing meat and stuff. And these flat teeth in the back are meant for, like, vegetables and things. We're omnivores. That's how we were made. That's how we were created. So, yeah, you can think of it that way, that's, what we're intended to do. All right. Danielle says, I started with annoying quail ruse and thanked them for their meat. It helped me with the processing. That's a good suggestion, Danielle. That may be one thing you can do to not feel bad about it, too, is put the roosters in your bedroom for a couple of days and make sure they have plenty of light. And with those things crowing all night long, you'll be pretty happy to dispatch them the next day. That's a good way to do it. All right. Inner City Chick says, have you ever tried the James Marie Jumbo Quail? Are they bigger than the meat makers or jumbos? Yeah, that's what I have right now is James Marie Farms bloodlines. I've got Jumbo Pharaoh and I've got Jumbo Meat Makers both. They're honestly about the same. I don't notice a big difference between them. The Meat Makers probably get just a little bit bigger, but it's not that much that you can just look at them and go, oh, that's a Meat Maker, that's a Pharaoh. The Pharaohs lay slightly bigger eggs, but again, it's not so much that you can look at the eggs and just be like, oh, that's a Pharaoh egg, that's a Meat Maker egg. Honestly, they're almost the exact same. Not much of a difference between them. They're both great birds, though. You're not going to go wrong with either one of them. All right, Farmer Dude says, sometime I get a baby rabbit with a bad neck. His head is not straight and looks off to the side. Other than that, it's healthy. What's going on there? Sounds like Rednecked, which is usually a vitamin deficiency. I want to say, let's see, in rabbits, is that vitamin E that they're lacking or something like that? It could be a genetic thing. So if you've got, especially if you're doing line breeding, and you've got several generations. By line breeding, I mean like breeding the fathers to the daughters, that kind of thing. That's fine to do. But over time, you could introduce some deformities or something like that in there. But it sounds like Rednecked, which is probably a vitamin deficiency. You might want to try to add some some vitamins to your water supply for those rabbits when you get them. All right, where are we at on time here? 5 more minutes left. Manny says, Rob says, hey to everyone. Hello, Rob. Manny says, I'm sorry, where do we go to sign up for the light fixture? Because I want to. Yeah, it's there's a link. If you look just a couple of, well, I didn't actually leave it as a link, did I? But you can get there from there. slightlyrednecked.com/solar light. You can go there, and it's just a couple of chats up from yours. And you can sign up, just put in your email address. I'll get notified. I'm not going to spam your email. Don't worry. I don't send out very much email at all. But I would say watch the channel too, because I have noticed when I do send out email, I think a lot of the times it goes to people's spam folders. They never see it. So, watch the channel. I'll announce it. It's going to be within the next couple of weeks. So it won't be long. All right. Rob says, I've got 2 bucks and 2 does that rather groom each other than breed. The does are receptive, and the bucks have bred other does recently. None are sick or fat. So you've got 2 bucks and 2 does that rather groom each other than breed. That happens sometimes. I've done some videos before on how to get rabbits to breed. If they've been receptive to other rabbits before, that's kind of strange, but hey, who knows? One thing you might try, you could try a couple of different things. What I always try doing is just bringing the doe to the buck and, doing that over and over again, morning, night, morning, night, morning, night. Usually 3rd or 4th time you do it, the rabbit's receptive and usually ready to breed. But if it's your buck not wanting to breed, that's usually a sign of them being, oh, Mr. Stingray, another $1.99 super chat. Good grief. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Wants to know if the giveaway is over. It is over. Unfortunately, we did the drawing on last Thursday night's live broadcast. So as long as you had a comment in there before then, you were in the drawing. Unfortunately, you didn't win if you were in the drawing. It was, I can't remember the username. Leo Wolf, I think it was. Leo Wolf that won. But, yeah, we gave away 100 eggs. Hopefully we can do that again sometime soon. Where are we at here? Talking about Rob's bucks that are not receptive. Usually it is a sign of them being overweight, but it could be any number of things. Keep trying with them. Hopefully it works. You might try moving them to a new cage. Move your buck to a new cage, give them a day or 2 in there, and then put the doe in there and see if that helps too. All right. Grinnin1 says, thanks for all the info that you're sharing. Great live events. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Kathy says, you're my new sewing buddy. Just finished making my father-in-law an ultra suede scarf. Made my sewing life fly. Hit thumbs up, everyone. So I don't know what that means exactly, but I was trying to think back. Did I do any sewing videos? I don't think I did because I'm not much of a sewer. So I'm guessing what that means is you're sewing while you're watching the broadcast, maybe, I guess. I don't know. But awesome. Either way, glad to hear it. Farmer says, like your shirt. Well, thank you. This is a 2012 shirt. And actually, I'm filling it out more than I used to. I went to the doctor about, I'll tell you guys this. Wait, hang on a second. What is this? Rob says, put a sign up for your neighbor's roosters for sale, $100. There you go. All right, let me tell you this story real quick because this is kind of funny. It was a couple of weeks ago. I had a sore throat. I was sure I had strep throat. I'd never had it before, but I was sure it was strep throat just because of some of the symptoms. But anyway, so I go to the doctor, get checked out for strep throat. I hadn't been to the doctor in probably six years or so. So I hadn't weighed myself. I hadn't been weighed in like 6 years. I don't care that much. I don't watch my weight that much. I don't jump on scales or any of those kinds of things. So really, it'd been about 6 years since I weighed myself. Well, they weighed me at the doctor's office, and I was 215 pounds. That's about 20 pounds heavier than I've ever been in my entire life. So it was kind of a surprise to me. I've noticed on the videos when I watch, I'm thinking, boy, I'm looking like I'm gaining a little weight. Maybe it's just I got a new wide-angle lens. Maybe it's the distortion from the lens. Nope, I gained weight for sure. So that's it. Anyway, Lauren says, thank you for all your help, Chris. No problem, Lauren. Thank you for watching the videos. Susan says, hi, Chris. Baby quails are grown up. Baby quails and grown up quails eat the same food. Yeah, I feed all my birds 30% game bird starter. It's what they eat from the time they come out of the incubator till the time they get butchered, processed, whatever. All right. Manny says, you should really do a drawing with your own eggs. I might do that at some point. I'm not really set up to do to do mass egg shipping, but I could probably get together enough for one drawing. We'll see. We'll see what I can do. It'll be spring before I do it probably, but because right now I'm not collecting eggs for incubating. It's just too cold out there, freezing before I can collect them and stuff. But all right, OTF Savage says, my rabbits have 23 baby bunnies. Awesome, congratulations. Marie says, we have a doe and a buck that has been together for months. The buck tries to breed her, but she will not let him. but she will try to breed him. What should I do? Sounds like a dominance. She's trying to be dominant with him. That's what she's doing, is showing dominant behavior. You can do a couple of things. Again, try morning, try night, try morning, try night, try morning, try night. You know, a couple of days and see if that fixes it. A lot of times it will. You might also try to, one thing that people report that works really, really well is take the doe, put her in like a pet carrier or something, put her in your car and drive her around the block a couple of times, and then bring her back and put her in the cage with the male. And sometimes they're just all of a sudden receptive. I don't know why that would work, but it's reported so much, it's got to be something to it. You can also try putting, like switching to a new cage. So put her in the buck's cage, put him in another cage, put her in the buck's cage for a couple of days, and then take her to the buck. And sometimes just being around that cage, the smell and all that kind of stuff will get her more in the mood to breed at that point. Hopefully that helps. So yeah, Kathy says, no, I'm just sewing. Sewing is one of those crafts I want to pick up. I've got my grandmother's old sewing machine, and she did teach me to do some things on it when I was a kid, but I never learned it really, really well. It's one of the skills I want to pick up as soon as I have time. The sewing machine's got to be serviced by now and all that. So Meanie says, where do you get your haircuts? In the shower usually, about every other day. That's my haircut. It's kind of, I'm due for one tomorrow. I'm starting to get some stubble here. It's time. It's time to trim up. Farmer Dude says, go on the keto diet. Yeah, if I was worried about my weight, I would go on the keto diet. Actually, just cut this stuff out right here, and I would lose those 20 pounds pretty quick. I'm just not worried about it. It's not the big deal. I'm already married. My wife's happy with me. It's not heavy enough that it's really affecting my weight at this point, so we'll see. Chances are whenever summer hits, I'll lose a lot of weight anyway. I usually do. I usually gain some weight when winter starts to come on, and then when summer hits, I lose a lot of weight. Speaking of soda, I'm taking another drink of it. All right. Marie says, we take our pigs for a ride to bring them into heat, so I know it works with pigs. Interesting. I never thought about pigs, but I guess it would. All right, guys. We're out of time. It's been an hour, a little over an hour. I need to go spend some time with the family before bedtime. But tomorrow's Friday. The weekend's coming. Hopefully you guys all have a great weekend. Thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. For all you guys that threw in some money on the Super Chats, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that too. And God bless each and every one of you. We will see you guys again next week, hopefully. Take care.